Well, I guess they do have a lot in common, this tag team. They are a fascinating bunch. All right, now let's talk about all this. Joining me is Dana Milbank, of course, a columnist at the Washington Post, and Christina Bellantoni, associate politics editor at CQ Roll Call. All right, great to have you both here. First, Dana, let's start with you. It was kind of curious to me, and that's part of why we did that intro, that Palin and Bachmann seem to be attacking Romney and Pawlenty on the same exact thing. Is there anything to that?
You mean, are they actually in cahoots? No, I suspect that they don't spend much time coordinating, because ultimately they're rivals for that same sort of Tea Party slot. But I think what you have going on here is you have these two candidates who really can't get elected going after the two guys who, you like their politics or not, they're probably the only ones who could get elected, and that's Romney and Pawlenty. You had Haley Barbour, who's another serious guy who's not running, pleading today to stop these purity tests, because it's going to make the Republicans ultimately unelectable. I don't suspect that either Bachmann or Palin has a real interest in listening to Haley Barbour on this, though.
I hear you, but you know, one of the things that we're seeing, of course, is the attack on people who ever switched positions, right? So that's why you bring Romney and Pawlenty into it. And so, Christina, what do you think? Are Romney and Pawlenty, as irrelevant as Pawlenty is, the mini-me that he is of Romney, are they in a lot of trouble here if these women keep attacking them day in, day out on their flip-flops?
No, not at all. In fact, I would really beg to differ with you. I think, first off, anytime Sarah Palin makes a gaffe like this, the media really focuses on it, and this allows candidates that are a bit more serious, she's not actually even a candidate at this point, to go out and make their case to voters. This is a very long election cycle. They have a lot of time to make their case, and if people are focused on her flubbing Paul Revere's history, well, that's all the more time Romney can go talk to some voters. Now, there's a very different dynamic going on with Bachmann and Pawlenty. They're both from Minnesota. A new poll came out today showing that Minnesota voters overwhelmingly would favor Pawlenty over Bachmann for president. So she needs to needle him for a different reason. If she wants to be able to do really well in Iowa at those caucuses, that's Pawlenty's strategy too, is to be able to do really well in Iowa. So she's trying to take him down. And as far as coordination, I mean, Palin and Bachmann, we've coined the term in the newsroom, they're sort of frenemies, really. They're similar, they have similar constituencies, but they're definitely eyeing each other pretty warily.
Yeah, and I don't want anybody to get me wrong. I don't think that they're secretly communicating and saying, okay, I'll tag in and then you hit Pawlenty from behind and I'll come in and deliver an elbow on Romney. No, but it seems like they are taking cues from each other. I mean, they see Sarah Palin attack on Romney Care, and then you see Bachmann attack on Romney Care against Pawlenty. So that's what I found to be interesting. But, you know, Dana, can they do serious damage, even if they're not going to win? Let's say Christina's right, and, you know, that these guys, Bachmann ultimately doesn't have that much support even in her home state when you compare her to Pawlenty, etc. But can they do damage to these leading candidates while they're in the race, especially if Sarah Palin gets into the race?
Well, they can do serious damage to them by stealing all the oxygen out of the room and not allowing people to realize what a wonderful guy Mitt Romney is. But I think more dangerously is they're doing serious damage to American history here, and it all is actually fitting together fairly seamlessly. You have Paul Revere warning the British, who retreat to New Hampshire and then, you know, fire the shot heard around the world up there. And then you have Herman Cain down in Georgia telling people to read the Constitution and then quoting the Declaration of Independence. So I think, you know, the question here is, as George W. Bush once said, is our children learning? And I think our children is not learning.
It's important to
Christina,
look at...
I wanted to ask about that, though. Look, why don't Republican voters look at that and go, oh, my God, she doesn't know anything? She doesn't know anything. Like, why doesn't that bother them? Like, if there was a Democratic candidate who was like, I don't know, you know, I think George Washington, when he beat the Egyptians, I'd be like, whoa, what? Wait, I don't want to vote for that guy.
Well, look at, I mean, Joe Biden got a lot of grief for some of the gaffes he made. I think that you've seen a lot of Republican voters go after him for that. In this case, I think that the important thing to look at is the local reaction, you know, particularly in Palin's case. She made a very calculated decision to be in New Hampshire the same day Romney announced her president. Not that that was a big surprise. We all knew he was going to run. But the Democrats had a lot of fun with this today, sending around images of where Romney's announcement placed in these local papers. In many, many cases, it was on the inside of those newspapers, while Sarah Palin and her, freedom-loving motorcycle-riding bus tour was actually what was getting the front page coverage. And that's a media decision. You know, she sells more newspapers than Mitt Romney. People like looking at her more than they like looking at Mitt Romney. So I think that that's going to continue to be a dynamic, not just with him, but with all of the candidates. She will suck up that oxygen, as Dana says.
No question. So let's go to the final analysis here, Dana, because, as Christina pointed out, Union Leader on Mitt Romney's big day puts him on page 3, has headlines about Sarah Palin. But does that necessarily mean she won the week? Like, when you look at this, as far as the candidates are concerned, who are you happiest if you're in the Republican race? Who do you think is the happiest among that lot after the end of this week?
There's nothing, if it's just this week, there's nothing necessarily wrong with having a lot of people who seem kind of nutty out there launching attacks, and Mitt Romney, or even your friend Pawlenty, if he can rise above, can be seen as setting apart from the rest of the field, above the fray. The problem is, if these guys, I mean, let's face it, Palin and Bachmann have a real constituency in the Republican electorate there, and if they succeed in getting voters in the frame of mind of you have to have these litmus tests, and if somebody has changed their position and they're just not acceptable, if that becomes the way the election is framed, well, obviously that's very damaging to both Pawlenty and Romney.
Yeah, I can't wait for Sarah Palin to run. If she runs, because it's partly just a morbid curiosity. Are the Republican voters actually going to vote for her? I don't know the answer, but I almost can't wait to find out. So, Christina, final analysis from you. At the end of the week, I know there were a lot of losers, but did anybody win this week?
I think Pawlenty did pretty well. I mean, Romney had a decent rollout as well. But the very important point to note is everyone wants to run against Sarah Palin. Don't think for a second that Romney and Pawlenty don't love being compared to her, because voters, when they make that choice, they prefer them, even though she's got better name recognition. And the Democrats would love to run against her, too. So that's why everyone's trying to goad her into it. And the media plays right along, because we all know it'll sell newspapers and get people to watch our programs.
All right. Dana Milbank and Christina Bellantoni, thank you both for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. All right. Now, when we come back, Paul Ryan lies.